Welcome to this week's session on occupational health and safety. It's an issue in every workplace, and of course real estate has its own unique challenges in occupational health and safety. So I've asked Don Tepper, the Chief Executive of the Real Estate Employers Federation, to share some of his knowledge on this area. Don, what is OH&S? It's an acronym we hear all the time, and perhaps it's used a little loosely sometimes. So I'm interested in your perspective on what you really see OH&S representing.
Emma, OH&S simply stands for Occupational Health and Safety, which most people are aware of. It's the term used to describe the laws and processes that help to protect employees from death, disease and injury while at work.
Pretty hard stuff.
Yes, it is indeed.
Now, in recent times, we've also started talking about OH&S. So I'm going to ask you, what's the difference between occupational health and safety and work health and safety?
Look, it's just a different terminology. What occurred a few years ago is the federal government made a move to harmonise OH&S throughout Australia.
I suppose it makes sense.
It does indeed, particularly for companies who work across borders. They're working from the same laws. And the term was simply changed to WHS, which is work health and safety. So instead of using the word occupational, it is now common just to use the word work, so it's referred to as work health and safety. These laws were supposed to be harmonised on the 1st of January 2012. However, only the two territories and New South Wales and Queensland made it by that date. All the other states, including South Australia, are yet to harmonise their laws with the model bill, and it looks as though that should happen sometime in 2013.
So it's an issue we've got to keep an eye on, I guess.
Yes, at the moment we're still going under the state occupational health and safety laws, and when Parliament passes the harmonisation legislation, we will then change to work health and safety. Yeah.
What general responsibilities does an employer have though? I mean, you're the boss. What do you need to do for your employees, and what responsibilities do you need to meet?
Generally, all OH&S law talks about what is reasonably practicable for the employer. So the employer must, so far as reasonably practicable, ensure the health and safety of the workers and other persons in the workplace. And this is achieved, through introducing certain procedures, processes and policies.
And I mean, it's not just the employer as well. Employees need to be engaged in that process. How so?
Oh, absolutely. Employees have responsibilities just like the employer does when it comes to occupational health and safety. Now, a worker must take reasonable care of their own health and safety, and take reasonable care to not adversely affect the health and safety of another person. And they must comply with reasonable instructions from the employer on occupational health and safety, and cooperate with any policies that may be introduced.
So I guess that extends to identifying things they may see within their workplace, or perhaps on properties they're managing as well, and letting people know there may be a hazard.
Yes, again, it's up to the employer to train their workforce in how to what's called identify hazards, assess those hazards, and then control those hazards. And that's actually the substance of occupational health and safety. Identification, assessment and control of hazards and risks.
Is there a role for consultation in OH&S, Don?
Absolutely. The legislation is very clear on this. Everything done in relation to occupational health and safety by an employer in the workplace must be in consultation with the employees. This is fundamental to eliminating or minimising risks or hazards in the workplace.
Makes sense, yeah. Yes. Risk management, who's ultimately responsible for that?
The ultimate responsibility always rests with the employer, or under the harmonisation laws, the word employer is actually no longer used.
Oh, okay.
The term used is the person conducting the business or undertaking.
Right, yeah.
Now, with a proprietary limited, the person undertaking the business or undertaking is the proprietary limited. And then, of course, under the proprietary limited, you have what's called officers. So it becomes the responsibility of the officers. Risk management would be to introduce a safety management system, and that's a set of policies and procedures to eliminate or minimise risks to work health and safety. The employer should, in consultation with its workers, prepare an emergency plan. This is to deal with events like fire, explosion, armed hold-ups, gas leaks, and all that sort of thing. Now, if one of those events was to occur in the workplace, all the employees must be trained what to do. You know, if the place catches on fire, the employees must know what to do. And of course that involves a certain amount of training, fire drills, and that sort of thing.
Well, you probably remember at the REI when we had the roof falling the other year and we had water coming through the lights and we all had to evacuate. So it does happen. We actually had a car blow up out the front one night too. So
yes.
It's amazing. It sort of sounds like it's not going to happen, but they do, don't
Well,
they?
it can happen at any time and without notice, and that's why training is so important. Which obviously includes how to evacuate the building, where to assemble, how to use fire extinguishers and so on. Something in real estate which is probably worth mentioning, and that is working alone.
It's a big issue.
It is a very, very big issue in real estate, because most salespeople and property managers for a fair amount of their time are working alone. And of course the big thing there is communication. You know, how do they communicate back to the office if something goes wrong? That's
right. Because unfortunately it has interstate, and no doubt some of our South Australian property managers and sales reps have potentially been in difficult situations before as well.
Absolutely. To say that it will never happen is kind of putting your head in the sand, because in the last 2 or 3 years there was a property manager murdered in Brisbane, and that was over a simple matter of paying rent. And in Melbourne there was a female salesperson murdered when she went to an evening appointment. So these things must be taken very seriously, both by the employer and the employees. And you know, if there's a hazard or a risk there, you must put control measures in place. And so my organisation, of course, has OH&S manuals.
Yes, you do have very good extensive manuals. I've seen those. And
there is a lot of emphasis placed on controlling risks and hazards in relation to working alone.
Great. Anything else you wanted to mention in OH&S, Don?
Probably the only last thing I would like to mention, of course, is in relation to the administration staff and ergonomics.
Absolutely.
Because they, you know, they're sitting at their workstation all day, normally sitting all day, working on a computer. So the ergonomics are very important there, and the employer should look to that.
Well, great to chat with you again, Don. I think that you've really shed some light on what can be, you know, a fairly dry subject, but really put some meaning to it in a real estate context. So thanks a lot, Don, and we'll see you in the next IR session.
Okay, thank you, Emma.